So let's start. So what we're doing today is looking at the writing. This is the writing for the academic module, okay? And the writing task 1. There are various task 1s that you are asked to do for the academic module, and we are going to look at static charts, what we call static charts, which is where you don't have a timeline, okay? So what we're going to be looking at is how to structure it and the kind of language that you're going to use when you don't have a timeline to describe, okay? But before we do that, we're going to look at a different example. This does have a timeline, and we're going to look at reading the question, okay? One of the issues sometimes candidates have is that they maybe don't spend enough time looking at the question before they start, and then make mistakes in terms of the accuracy. So part of your task achievement, you know, is that the information that you put down is completely accurate, and it can be quite easy to get some of that information incorrect, which is a great shame because it's not even about the language, it's just about reading the chart, okay? So, you know, read the question very carefully, pay attention to the detail of the question, and then also the title. So those two things together give you a lot of information. And then you need to look at the axes and also the key, okay? So, for example, if you have figures, in this case, it's in thousands, sometimes it's in percentages, sometimes it's in millions, and it's quite a common mistake for people to get those figures wrong. So they might just put 50 instead of 50,000, or 50% instead of 50,000. So it is really important to just spend a few minutes looking at all of this information and make sure that you know exactly what the chart is looking at, okay? So in order to do that in practice, we're going to do some true false statements, okay? So I'm going to put some statements up, have a look at all of this information, and then tell me if those statements are true or false. And if they're false, what is the correct information, okay? So if you look at the first sentence, okay, oh, hi Neo, nice to see you again. Okay, good. Neo has put that is false, which is correct. So why is that false? What are they talking about in the sentence, and what are they talking about in the chart? What's the incorrect? Yes, exactly. So AR. So we have the difference between immigration, so coming into the country, and emigration, which is going out of the country, okay? So that's one thing again, but those words can be quite easily, and it's also, yes, you're right, Puang, it's not travel, it's work. Okay, so what about the next one? Okay, yes, you're right, Demetra. Yes, exactly, this is true. So we have the correct timeline, we have the immigration, and we have the fact that we're talking about workers rather than anything else. We're not talking about students, for example. Okay, and what about the next one? Think about this one carefully. Okay, the total, the number actually in the country. Okay, Nathan, you've put false, and if you can, why is it false? Okay, you're right, but what's false about the information? Why is it not correct? Yeah. Okay, actually, it's not just that. It's because this is talking about the number of immigrants, and actually we're talking about the number of immigrant workers. Okay, so 1992, but the number is right. We're talking about 40 plus 15. So it's 50, about 54, a bit 55. But yes, Ali, it's only about workers. It's not about total number of immigrants. Okay. So, you know, if you put that, that wouldn't be correct. Okay. So it's the number of immigrant workers, not the total number of immigrants. Because we are adding together, Adnan, permanent settlers, which is 40,000, and temporary workers, which is about 14. So 40 plus about 14 is 54. Okay, thank you very much. Pratham has written up there are, if you join the two different ones together, okay, permanent and temporary together for 1992 is 54,000. Okay. All right, let's move on. So it compares two types of worker. No, you're not. Okay, two types of worker. Yes, true. So we've got permanent and we've got temporary workers. So that's one of the divisions of the chart. Okay. Okay, what about the next one? So we're looking at permanent settlers in 1992. Think about it, think about it, think about it. Okay. All right, we've got a mix. If you think it's false, why is it false? Okay, very good. Maria has got there. Marvit's got it. It's not percentages. Yeah, this is what I was saying about reading the axes very carefully. It's in thousands. It's not in percentages. Okay, so if you start writing about percentages, you're going to lose a lot of marks in task achievement. Okay, so that's the kind of thing it's worth highlighting before you start writing. Exactly, Alexei, it's 40,000. We're not talking about percentages here. Okay, let's have a look at the next one. So we're looking at 1995. We're looking at the total number of foreign workers in 1995. Okay, this is a bit of a, the number's right, okay, but it's the number that immigrated, not the number that were in the country. Okay, so it's the number of people that entered the country that year. Okay, so again, I know that seems a bit tricky, but if you say that you're talking about the total number of immigrants in the country, it's actually not the same thing. This is talking about new immigration. Yeah, tricky. It is tricky. But it's the kind of thing you need to be careful about because, you know, you write that, you're not actually writing accurate. Exactly, Jalil. It's inflow. Okay? It's inflow. It's not the current, it's not the total number in the country, because the total number in the country would be everybody that had arrived all of the previous years as well. Okay, we're not talking about that. We're talking about people coming in. Okay, it is quite tricky. The one we're going to work with is a bit easier. Okay, so now we're looking at 1992. We've got a number just under 15,000. We've got temporary workers. We got the year. Yes, okay, everything is correct in that part. We've got thousands, we've got the fact that it's temporary workers, we've got the fact that we're entering the country rather than living in the country, and we've got the right year. Okay, so that's the kind of sentence that you need to write. Everything is exactly what it is saying on the chart. Okay. All right, and just a last one with a comparison. So we're looking at 2001 and comparing the two types of workers. Okay, so we're going to just look at which number is higher. Yes, it's the other way round. So the blue is temporary workers. The blue figure is higher than the green figure. Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So that was about reading the chart and making sure that all of the information that you write is exactly right. Okay. It's very easy to get the information a little bit wrong. And one of the key things I think that people do get wrong is the measurement of the figures. Yeah. So make sure, is it thousands? Is it percentages? Is it millions? Whatever it is, make sure that you've got exactly the right figures that are there. Okay. So this is the one we're going to use as our example. So this is a static chart. There's no timeline. There's no progress over time. So we can't use that kind of language like increase and decrease. We've got to use different language, okay? And again, you know, we're not going to practice this again, but just to remind you, check the key, check the axes, check the title, make sure before you start writing, oh, it would be nice, wouldn't it, pizza? Make sure that you've got everything right in your head before you start writing. You know, underline some of these keywords. So again, this is immigration into Australia, it's workers, etc., etc. In this case, it's the percentages, Adnan, and the years. I mean, it's not axes like that, but it's the same thing, okay? Okay, so same structure, all the task ones for the academic module, you have the same structure: introduction, overview, then the body, and it's quite nice if you can to divide that body up into 2 separate paragraphs, yeah? Because for one thing, it's just easier for the examiner to read what you're writing, okay? So let's have a look at the introduction. So as we know, main thing to do with the introduction is just to paraphrase the task question. There's no conclusion, mice, in task 1, okay? Only an overview, and we will look at the overview in a moment, okay? So your first part is your introductory sentence. Yes, is that Roma or Roma Kochazuk? Great name. The best thing to do is between each of the paragraphs to leave a blank line. Similarly for the task 2, just leave a blank line between each paragraph, and then it's very clear to the examiner, this is a new paragraph. If you don't leave a blank line, it can get a bit confusing sometimes, okay? So in the case, yeah, actually in both cases, we're talking 4 paragraphs. Yes, okay, it's okay. So don't put too much information in the introductory sentence. That's not what it's about, okay? Do be specific, and you don't have to paraphrase everything, okay? This is actually like a general piece of advice for the writing. I kind of find that, again, this is also in the task 2, that people seem to be sort of going crazy trying to find, okay, guys, can we focus, please? You try and find a, you know, a paraphrase or a synonym for something, and it starts going a bit crazy because you're trying too hard. You don't have to find synonyms for everything. And also remember that paraphrasing is not just synonyms, it is also paraphrasing the grammar, the sentence structure, things like that, okay? So if we try and paraphrase what we've got here, so rather than saying the chart, what could we say instead of the chart? How could we be a bit more specific? Yeah, Miles, I think, you know, we're looking at the pie chart. It's not really a graph, it's a pie chart. Yeah. Yeah, the introductory sentence or the introduction is just saying the task question in a different way. Okay. Then instead of shows, we can say, what else could you say? Okay, very good. Illustrates, depicts is another good one. Yeah. Okay. Highlights could be very nice. Yes. Okay. What about proportion? What could we use instead of proportion? You can say below, but you don't have to. Yes, good. Percentage and proportion. So those are good words to use and to move between. Yeah. Ratio as well. So here we've got immigrants working. So what would be, okay, workers would work. Yeah, you could use foreign. We could use something to do with employed or employment, foreign workers. Okay. You can use numbers as well. Yes. So we've used workforce. So we've used a noun instead of that, but there are lots of different ways you could describe that. Okay. From various regions and countries. Okay, very good, Rumcroft. Overseas would be good. We could say different parts of the world. That would work very well. Yeah. Yeah. So we've actually given the number as being 6 and we use different rather than various. Okay. All right. And then, you know, Australia, 1991, not really any way of paraphrasing that. So let's just keep that the same. Okay. Yeah, that's great, Godfrey. That's really, really good. You could say in the year 1991 if you wanted to. Yeah, that would be fine. So, you know, yes, if you wanted to really paraphrase, you could go a bit crazy, but that's fine. That's it. That's all you need to do for the introductory sentence. You really don't want to spend a lot of time on it. Yeah, you want to just get that down nice and quickly, but not using the exact words from the task question or the title. Okay. All right, then we can do the overview next. You can also do the overview at the end of your answer. That's your choice. It really doesn't matter. Okay. And the most important thing about the overview is that you talk about the key trends and you don't include any detail. Okay, so there's got to be a really clear separation between the key trends, the highlights, the overall trends, and the body where you put the detail and you put the figure. Yeah, exactly, Adnan. No numbers. You don't want to put any numbers in the overview. Okay, that's too much detail. All right. The things that you can focus on are, for example, the largest number. So we can see we've got our Pac-Man is a very large number. Yeah. Possibly you might write about the smallest number. Yeah. And if there's anything that you can group together. So you can see here we have 3 numbers that are all very low. So we could think about grouping those together. And we can talk about patterns. Okay, we're going to talk about that. So yes, Ala, basically the obvious trends. If you look at the pie chart or the graph or whatever it is, what is striking? What strikes you? Okay. We're coming to all those questions in a minute, guys. Yes, possibly Zainab, maximum and minimum. Okay, so clearly we can see that Europe has, you know, the highest number by a long way. Then Asia and, you know, to a certain extent, New Zealand, those are sort of together, they're quite significant numbers, and then everything else is very small. Okay, so that's our overview of the different ones. Yeah. Okay, so then we're going to write it. So yeah, how do we start the overview? What is the word to start? Okay, yes, Jemmy has got it, Raven's got it, yeah. Overall. Okay, so very important to put a word. To be honest, overall does it every time. You don't need to think about it. And yes, you're right, Can. Something like it is clear that, or we can see that. So those are the words, okay? So it is, what do we say here? It is, what's the missing word? Okay, very good. It's clear from the chart. In this case, you can use we, yeah, that the what's looking, okay, so we can say the number, or actually it's Europe. So yeah, it's the majority come from Europe. So we're giving the biggest number first, okay. Then we move on to the next figure. So Asians and New Zealanders, okay, make up a significant, okay, quota would work. Yeah, number or percentage. Remember, when you use it as a noun, it's a percentage or a significant proportion, something like that. And if you notice here, rather than using the country, which is in the key, we changed it to the nationality. So that's another way of paraphrasing it, okay? And then we're going to compare that to the other ones. So, okay, very good, Neo. So while or whereas works very well as well. And then we group all the others together, okay, because they're all small numbers, so we don't really need to name them in this case, okay. And that is fine. That's your overview. Is usually 2 sentences, could be just 1 sentence, unlikely to be more than 2, to be honest, okay. If you're going over 2 sentences, probably you are starting to write detail rather than overviews, okay. So that's it. Yes, Faisal, this will be on the Facebook page and the YouTube page from tomorrow, I think. Okay, so you can watch this as many times as you like. Okay, so that's your overview. Okay, so we can see there's no figures here, there's no details. Yes, and we're using the past tense because we're referring to 1991. So everything's going to be in the past tense, okay? So now we're going to move on to the body paragraphs. So as we said, you know, it's nice to divide into 2 paragraphs, and sometimes you get 2 charts. So, you know, that's then very easy. But if you don't, if you look at this pie chart, how could we divide that up into 2 sections? What sort of things, how could we divide it? How could we separate the detail? Okay, yes, I think you're right, yeah. Okay, it's coming at the end, okay? Yes, so you could talk about Europe and Asia in 1 paragraph as being the biggest, and then you could talk about the other small ones. So big ones in 1 paragraph, small ones in another paragraph. It doesn't, you know, there are various ways of doing it, but you should be logical. So whatever you decide, you have to stay with that organization, okay? And you decide what that is, and you group by some kind of feature, okay? So yes, as we said, we could put the biggest numbers in 1 paragraph and the smallest numbers in the 2nd paragraph. That's how we've done it in our example. I think that's probably the most logical one. But if you wanted to, another possible approach, maybe for a different type of chart, would be the highest and lowest numbers. So the extreme numbers in the 1st paragraph, and then everything else, everything in the middle in the 2nd one. So the less important ones. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe not in this case, but in other cases, it might be a geographical division. It might be by gender. It might be by year. There's various ways that you can do it. I think with the pie chart, just focusing on the numbers is probably the simplest way to do it, okay? Because then you can explain that very clearly, okay? Yeah, 2 paragraphs in the body is great, okay? All right. So let's look at how we do that, okay? So a little bit more advice first. So in some cases, this one, there's not that many numbers. So you could, you know, talk about all the numbers very easily. That's not going to be a problem. You can get task questions where there's a lot of numbers, often with the tables, many numbers. So if that is the case, you really have to be careful about which ones you choose. You can't write about all of the numbers. So again, you want to select things that stand out, or you want to try and group things together, maybe look for the trends, but don't just list the numbers. That's going to get you a very low mark in task achievement, okay? Yeah, Maria, you can use the question paper to make plans, to sketch anything out. There's lots and lots of space on the question paper, the writing question paper, okay? And Nunush, there are always numbers, so you don't have to worry about that. There's always numbers in the graphs and the charts, okay? And, you know, task 1, it's equally important to link your ideas. I think sometimes candidates think that's only important for task 2, but it's also important for task 1. Different kind of linkers possibly, but okay, we'll have a look at them in a moment. Yes, so Myers has put some up. Things like, you know, however, in addition, in contrast to, time phrases, things like that, okay? So before we go to that, very quickly, we're going to look at some language. So if you notice, the pie chart was in percentages. It usually is in percentages. Very common to get percentages in this type of question. If you always write the percentage, it's a little bit, you know, that's a bit too easy. So what's a really good thing to do is to use some fractions or some ratios. Okay, very good. Everyone's there. Okay, can whilst is the same as while and whereas. So those 3 words are exactly the same. Whereas, while, whilst. Okay. Good. So yeah, so we're just going to match to the percentage. So a tenth or 1/10 is 10%. 1 in 5 would be, okay, very good, 20%. A third, okay, very good, 33%. Okay, 3 out of 4, 75%. Yeah, okay, just over 60%. Okay, good, 66%. 1 out of 3. Okay, very good. That would be a third again. A quarter. Okay, very good. Also be careful with the spelling of a quarter. 2/3. Very good, exactly 66%. 1 in 4. Okay, very good, 25%. 3/4. Okay, very good. 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3, yeah, 66%. A fifth. Okay, very good, 20%. Just over 30%. Okay, very good. And 1 in 10. Yes, okay, very good. So you don't have to put everything as fractions, but if it's very close to an obvious fraction, like a quarter or a fifth, then it's really good to use fractions rather than just always using the percentages, okay? And as you can see at the bottom, approximate language is also really useful. So you can say things like just over, just under, approximately, roughly, those kind of words. They're good words and they also add to your word count. Yeah, about, things like that. They're really good words. Almost, nearly, exactly, okay? You can use a quarter with anything, any subject matter. You can use a quarter. The ratios, so like 1 in 10, little bit more tricky, because 1 in 10 you can only use with countable nouns. So it could be, you could use it with people, you could use it with countries, that would be fine, but you've just got to be a little bit more careful with the ratios. Fractions you can use all the time, okay? And it makes a big difference, and it will be very good for your vocabulary score to use fractions rather than percentages all the way through. Okay, so we have our first body paragraph here. So we've done it for you, but we're missing out a lot of the words that are related to comparing the figures and some of the percentages. Okay, good. So yes, number 1 is the majority. Number 2 is, which one? If we give the figure for Europe, it says 62. So, oh, we're all over the place. Yes, thank you. 2/3, nearly 2/3, 62%. Okay, and then we're moving down to, what are we going to put? Okay, very good, Ade. The second largest group. So we're linking now to the first one. Okay, they represented just under, okay, very good, a fifth. So we've got 17%, a little bit under 20%. Okay, whoops, I went ahead of you. Number 5 would be, very good, Raven, a tenth, which is 9%. Okay, which were the, we've only got one left. Yeah, the third largest group. Okay, so usually a good idea to do it in order. Okay, biggest down to, well, the smallest of the big numbers. So we're looking at the 3 biggest numbers here. Okay, and we're also going to look at a little bit of language. Okay, so what tense are we using to describe it? Yeah, very good. So it's 1991, simple past throughout. Okay, there's not really going to be any opportunity to use any other tense there. Okay, and okay, another good thing is when you are talking about the numbers, when you are reporting the numbers, what kinds of verbs can you use to report the numbers? You can say was. I'm looking for verbs. Okay, very good, Tuan. Amount to, or made up, or here we've got represented as well. Okay. But amounted to is very good. Yeah, you can, in a pie chart, you could say occupied, but more generally represented, accounted for, made up, or amounted to. So again, you know, it's IELTS, so you want to make sure that you're using a lot of variety in terms of your vocabulary. Don't use the have. Okay, a lot of people say, you know, Europe had 62%. That doesn't work. Don't use have. Use one of these other verbs that we have here. Okay. Okay, and we've also got some approximate language. So as well as almost, what approximate language do we have in that one? Okay, nearly and roughly are good. What else have we got here? Yeah, we've got nearly, we've got just under, we've got almost, and yes, approximately and roughly are very good ones to use as well. And around, I think some of you were putting there before. Okay, so first paragraph, looking at the biggest numbers, and we're linking together those numbers by going from the highest down. Okay, then the second body paragraph, we contrast now to the larger numbers. So we can say that the three remaining, okay, good, was much smaller. So this is our link to the first paragraph, that now we're talking about the small numbers. Okay, so North Africa and the Middle East are around 4%, okay, of the whole foreign labor force. So again, we've got more vocabulary here. We're talking about labor force. And then we go down to, yes, it is the smallest group, which we can name as the Americans and say they represented just 3%. Okay. So here we can put the detail, we can put the figures, and you must put the figures, okay? Very, very important. It's not just the language for comparing, but you have to put the exact figures as well, okay? So again, you know, we're looking at some of the comparisons, we're looking at smaller. You can do the, you can write it out, 80 as percent, or you can do the symbol percent. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Okay. It's always percent. It's not percents. Okay. Yes, Omi, very good. So then we've got so we're using comparatives and superlatives here to make the comparison between the different figures. And what can we use to emphasize that it's a very low number? When we talk about America, just, yes, very good, or only, or merely. So again, those are very good words to use. So the approximate language, and also that language that means it's very, very small. You can just use the percentages, but you will get a better mark at vocabulary for using fractions. That's, you know, that's just how it is. Okay. So, and again, we've got some paraphrasing here. So we've got labor force, we've got workers, and we talked about workforce before. Okay. So here we have the total answer. Okay. Band 9 before anybody else, yeah. 171 words. So remember, in the overview, key features only, no figures, no details. Introductory sentence, paraphrase the question, okay. Overview with a clear introductory word like overall, and only talking about the main trends in its own paragraph, and then a logical division of the figures into 2 paragraphs, and if you can, use fractions and ratios, and the kind of language that they're looking for here are comparatives, superlatives, and approximate language. Okay, there's no conclusion in the task 1. Okay, there is an overview, not a conclusion. Okay, there is also no maximum word count. You must write over 150. You will lose marks. You will be penalized if you write under 150, but there is no maximum. But I would, you know, you don't really need to write much more than 150. If you write 160, 155, 170, that's going to be fine, okay? You can say ratio, not ration, ratio. Take away the N, okay? If there are 2 pie charts, or for example, a pie chart and a graph, it's a good question. then you don't need to compare them. Usually they are on slightly different subjects. So you just need to make it clear that now I'm describing the first one, now I'm describing the second one, and then, you know, you can introduce the second one by saying something like, turning now to the second pie chart, bum, 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 bum. Okay, and yes, Jalil, no contractions. It is formal academic writing, no contractions. Okay. What I'm going to do now is go to the Q&A. Well, actually, in a moment, I'm going to go to the Q&A. First of all, I'm going to just talk about these services that we offer. Okay, so you can get your speaking and writing evaluated by an examiner or an ex-examiner. It's a paid service, but you do get very specific feedback. Yeah, it's you do it through the website. You can also go to the website and find out what webinars are coming up. So you can see what you would like to attend. This webinar and all of the previous webinars, the recordings are on YouTube and also on Facebook. And if you have any questions that we don't manage to answer today, because there's always a lot of questions, then you can always put them on the Facebook page, and there are people there who will answer your questions on Facebook. Okay. The webinars are free, Puong. Also the service, which I'm just going to show you now, but I just have to come out and just show you something. So apologies for just having to look at me for a moment, but I should be able to just put this up. Okay, so this one is the, I've just put up the link, thank you guys. I've just put up a link to the new service that we are offering, which is the one where you record your answer online, okay? And you can do that for free. If you want to have it checked by an examiner, that would be a paid service. But if you want to put it up and let other people comment on it, and you know, you can comment on other people, that's a free service. Thank you. It's from Brazil. Okay, so there are a range of services, a range of places to access material that you can use. Okay, so that's great. Thank you very much, guys. Those of you are saying thank you, that's brilliant. So let's have a look at some questions. Okay, so Romako, I hope I'm saying your name right. I'm not quite sure where it breaks up. Question about the usage of the phrase, the data is broken down by the year. Into two parts. Yeah, you can say the data is broken down usually by the category. Okay, Roma, thank you. So by the year, or broken down by gender, or by nationality. So you would say broken down by, and then you would follow it with the category. Okay. Yeah, because what was your question? Did you put it in chat? Sorry, do you want to just put it in the to be honest, because it's a personal choice. Yeah, whether you use the computer or the paper-based. I don't think neither of them is easier than the other. It's exactly the same test. Are you more comfortable using a computer, or are you more comfortable writing? I know I'd be more comfortable writing, but that's just me. I'm old. A lot of people feel more comfortable using the computer. Everything else is totally the same. Okay. So let's have a look at the questions here. Alice says, do we state the obvious trends of the chart in the introduction? No, the introduction is just paraphrasing the question, Ala. The obvious trends you put in the overview. Okay, so that would be the next paragraph would be where you put the key trends. Okay. Teresa says, are we supposed to write every country on the pie chart in the overview? Not necessarily, Teresa. As you can see with what we did, sorry, just let me go back to the sample question, that we didn't mention the small numbers, yeah? So in the overview, you don't have to mention, you can kind of group together that there was a group of small numbers, okay? Anonymous saying, can I watch this lesson again? Yes, on YouTube or on Facebook, okay? Adnan says, is it true that the April test will be hard? The tests are all of the same level, so you know, there are, you can't take it in. So I don't think the April test will be any harder than any of the others, Adnan. I don't know if there's some rumor going around, but it's very, very unlikely, okay? Chriswell says, why don't we use specific numbers in the first paragraph? If you mean the overview, Crystal, then the overview, you don't put specific figures in the overview. Okay, that is the key trends. The specific figures go in the body, and it's really, really important to separate out those two different areas. Okay. Alice, you can watch all the previous webinars, as I said, on Facebook or on the website on the YouTube channel. Okay. So Facebook or YouTube, you can find all of the webinars that have taken place. Okay. Jalal says, we can see on the graph or it can be seen. So you can use both, Jalil. You can say it can be seen that, or you can say we can see that. And these kind of reporting phrases are very nice as well. Okay, so it can be seen that, it is clear that, particularly in the overview. Okay. Okay, let's have a look. So Mustak says, if you have two charts, then comparing the two charts will be restricted. Not entirely sure what you mean, Mustak, but if you have two charts, usually you don't need to compare between the two charts. So you will talk about the first chart in one paragraph, then you will start your second paragraph saying, for example, turning now to the second pie chart, and then you'll describe the second pie chart, and you don't need to make any comparisons between them. In the overview, you can do two overviews if you like. So you can say in the first chart, we can see that da 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 da, while in the second chart, da 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 da. So you give two overviews, but still in one paragraph. Okay. Okay, Esther is saying you're writing the academic IELTS test. Is it the same? This task that we're looking at now, Esther, is for the academic module. The general training module has a different task one, okay? Yeah, again, I really want to emphasize this. There is no conclusion to the task one, okay? So task one, overview, task two, conclusion. Okay, just sort of say that to yourself. Task one, overview, task two, conclusion, and don't mix them up. Okay. Okay, let's keep moving down. Huang says, can I combine the introduction and overview into one paragraph? I would keep them separate, to be honest, Huang. I think it's much easier for the examiner to go, yes, that's a clear overview, if the overview is just in a single paragraph on its own, beginning overall. Okay, so keep them separate. Yeah, 4 paragraphs basically, as somebody said at the beginning. Okay. Okay, Adnan, the upcoming webinars are all on the website. So if you can just go to the website, again, I can just put it here. So you can see upcoming webinars. If anybody can put these links in chat, that would be really good. So you go to listing and that will tell you all of the webinars that are planned, okay? And if you go also to IELTS online tests and you go to the exam library, okay? The exam library has lots and lots and lots of sample tests, okay? So you can go onto the website and you can find one with a pie chart and you can try doing that as a sample, and you will also see a model answer, okay? So just go to the website and there will be actually many different task ones that you can choose, okay? All right, let's keep going. Ala says, can I just have one big body paragraph? It's not always a problem, Ala. It's you know, it's not quite as important, the body paragraphs, as in the task 2, where it's super important. But it's a lot easier for the examiner to read it when it's divided up. And if you do have 2 pie charts or a line graph and a pie chart, which is quite common, then yeah, the links are up here, but if anyone can put them in chat, that would be great too. If you have 2 different charts, I would definitely put them in 2 separate paragraphs, okay? It really just makes it much easier, and you know, you can be sure then of getting a good mark in the coherence and cohesion section, okay? Maya says, in the website, there's different volumes. How are they different from each other? So that's just different types of tests, Maiz, yeah? So volume 1 has a group of tests in it. Volume 2 has a different group of tests. So there's just a lot of different example tests there for you, okay? Okay, Anonymous says, majority can be used to show the biggest proportion. Yeah, it doesn't have to be above 85%, Anonymous. The majority just means more than 50%. So any figure over 50% is automatically a majority, because nothing else can have as big a figure as 51%. So any figure over 50% is majority, okay? It will be examiners and ex-examiners, Jalil, okay? Okay, we've got that question. Yeah, so who evaluates the speaking and writing? As I said, examiners, ex-examiners, so everybody who has examined, okay? Right, that's quite a good question. Roma is asking about using like a dash in the writing. That's informal, Roma, so avoid using the dash. I would also avoid using colons or anything else like that. The only punctuation you're going to be using is full stops and commas, okay? Yeah, it's great if you're writing informally, but it's not actually correct academic English, so you know, you must write proper sentences, okay? Anonymous is asking about minus marks. It's not a question really of minus marks. We have bands, okay, and the examiner looks at your writing and it compares it to a specific band score, okay? The band scores go from 1 to 9, and each band is compares to a certain ability at English, okay? So you've got doing, you know, the things you need to do gets you a higher band score. and everybody will have a band score that they need to achieve that's been requested by the agency or the university that you are writing to. Okay, very quick couple of questions. Yes, AD, you can put figures in brackets at the end. My advice would be to mix it up. Sometimes put the brackets, sometimes put the figures in brackets at the end, but sometimes put them in the sentence as well. Okay. Okay, Esther, the criteria are, first one is task achievement, which is basically answering the question in the correct way. Second one is coherence and cohesion, which means that you have organized the answer logically and it flows well. Third one is vocabulary, and the fourth one is grammar. Okay, maybe we could, do a session on the criteria. I think that might be quite useful. And Huang, if you write less than 150 words, you will be penalized in the task achievement section. Okay, guys, gotta go. Thanks very much for coming. Thanks very much for participating. Best of luck if you have your exam coming up soon. Sorry if you've had it postponed because of our situation we have at the moment. But take care, and I hope very much to see you same time next week for the next webinar. Okay, guys, take care. Good night if it's nighttime. I'm going to go and have some pizza, Dimitro, okay? Which I'm going to buy myself. Okay, cheers, guys. Bye-bye. Night-night. Take care. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.